Okay, so good morning, everybody. So my name is Charlie McClelland. There'll be a formal introduction in a later slide. And what I want to do today is help to deliver some growth information to you, to give you some thought about what you might be growing your business into. What would you like it to become and why? And for those of you that registered, you will obviously remember that we're describing it as a car wash, and we're trying to understand what on earth is a car wash got to do with the business? And it's not so much the car wash itself, it's actually the effect of making the car cleaner that we're going to be having a look at. And as you can see, it's it's talking about succession planning. So what that is and why it's important will come out of the presentation. So the agenda this morning, we're looking for a maximum of an hour and a half, and some of that will be questions. So I'm expecting to finish my part of the presentation before the questions, around about 12 o'clock. And I think you know it's already done. Housekeeping is just microphones off, please, and cameras off, which is all automatic. Then we're looking at what do they have in common? What on earth is all this about? And in fact, why even think about selling your business? And the answer is, if it's not thought about in advance, there are things that could possibly go wrong. And also, if you think about it in advance, you can already set your goal and set your option for when the time comes. And I work for an organisation, Succession Plus, and they would have you believe that if you follow 21 steps, you will go through a rigorous and robust process that gives you the best outcome. And then after that, of course, you get a chance to ask questions, because I can imagine now that for those of you that are starting out in your business, all this would seem such a long way away. But what I hope to convey to you is that if you have these things in the back of your mind, your business will be bigger, better, and stronger because of it. So just a little bit about me. I've told you my name. It's Charlie McClelland, and some would tell you I'm an experienced business leader, and I would certainly tell you I want to help you guys, the small, medium businesses, because in my working life, I see too many business owners that are not happy. So let's help you to enjoy running your businesses. And I see a lot of businesses which are not running well. They are kind of doing what they did yesterday. They may not have processes in place. They may be doing lots of firefighting. They may be doing lots of things which, as I say, happen in a great number of businesses, but the businesses are not running well. And that's what I want, because a business that does run well will be easier to run and will be more profitable. And so if a business is profitable and is running well, the chances are it will outperform some of the businesses which are in fact much bigger. It will win more bids, it will win more business, it will complete more business. And so for the business owner, one imagines that that's what they'd like to see. And then the real long-term thing is that, in my mind, I believe a business should be set up for a reason. And that reason is not just, I've got a great idea, I can sell it, I can make money. Let's look a lot further forward than that. Let's say, actually, the reason I've started my business is to make so much money that I can retire. I can pass the business to someone else. I can sell it and start another business and do something even greater. So for me, there should be an outcome as to why you are starting the business that you are starting, and not just running on coffee and adrenaline and going from buzz to buzz and winning a deal and winning another deal, but really maximizing the way your company performs over its lifetime. And for many business owners, it's their lifetime and they only sell the business once. So I want to point people in the direction of making sure that when it comes to that time in the distant future, they will have done everything right and get the maximum value. Because if we look at a car, what's a car? At one level, it's a lump of metal. If you talk to an accountant, they'll tell you it's a thing that's called a depreciating asset, which means you pay lots of money for it when it's new, and over time it becomes worth less and less and less. And over time, the amount of money it depreciates or the value it loses is something that you have a bit of control over. Some people, you see them outside their houses at the weekend on a sunny day, they're washing and polishing their car and they can do that themselves. And they love it. And they're out there, you see them. Other people have really nice cars. Company lease it to them. It's a lovely, lovely car. And every now and again, they'll take it to the chaps at the end of the road and the car will be valeted. So a few people spend, I don't know, is it half an hour? Is it an hour? Going over the car meticulously and cleaning it. And when it comes out of that process, it's like a new pin, isn't it? It's like the day it left the showroom. Most people, when they hop back into the car after it's been valeted or cleaned, there's a little smile on their face because actually it's quite nice, isn't it? My car's nice and clean. And instead of hiding inside some sort of mucky, grubby car that you perhaps feel a little bit bad about, you've come out of this process. Your car is gleaming and you love it. It's attractive to you. And actually, other people may even look at it and say, like, wow, look at that car. It's in fabulous condition. It's attractive. And so if at that moment in time you decided to sell your car, it would be attractive to whoever wanted to buy it. But equally, if you love driving around in this suddenly nice, clean, attractive, beautiful car, you can. And you can keep that process going. You drive it, gets a bit dirty, you take a look, you clean it, you get it back in good shape, you get it back to being attractive. And this is for something that's worth, what are we talking about for a car? 10, 20, 30, 40 or more £1,000. So in terms of value, it's big, but it's not that big. If we compare it to the value of business, it suddenly pales into insignificance, or it should do. And if we look at how most businesses are run, especially if they've been running for 10 or 20 years, much further down the line than you guys probably are, when it's running well, it appears to keep itself running. There's nobody running around like a headless chicken. There's no one stressed to the eyeballs. There's no one working 17 or 20-hour days because somebody thought ahead. Somebody thought about, how can we make this work well? How can we make it attractive? Or it might be that the owner has kind of got his arms wrapped around everything, his or her arms wrapped around everything. They've got their finger in every pie. They're making sure everything is good because in their minds, they know how to do everything the best way. And so it goes on, day after day, week after week, month after month, and year after year. And if you were to speak to this mythical business owner who is, I don't know, 40s, 50s, maybe 60s year old, he would say, I don't need to think about this because I'm not ready to sell. So how attractive is his business or her business? And if we also look at what could possibly go wrong, well, the worst thing to do when anyone wants to sell a business is to do it suddenly. If you need to sell your business now, because something bad has happened, you're not going to get the value that you deserve. And if we look at what can happen, a death, if it's a death of the owner, if everything is in that owner's head, because that's the way they ran the business will probably grind to a halt. Everybody's going to probably lose their jobs, and the whole thing will just crumble and decay, because there's no one there to do anything, is there? The owner's gone, bless him, and nobody really knows what to do. The second of the 5 Ds is a disagreement. And so often, especially in family businesses or businesses started by friends, people possibly in your position now are saying, don't worry, we don't need any real paperwork. We're friends, or we're family. We wouldn't argue. We love each other. No, we've been friends for years. And what tends to happen is there'll be a life change for somebody. Somebody will perhaps get fed up, or they'll get itchy feet, or something will happen and they might say, well, actually, I want to leave the business. Oh. And they might say, so I think I deserve 50% because there's just 2 of us, running the business, shareholders. Or they might say, well, since I've been doing more than you, I deserve 60%. Really? How is that quantified? How is that fair? How is that right? So by having a share agreement, a shareholders agreement from day one that says these are the shares and this is how they're split, this is how they're divided, and this is what it means. If somebody chooses to have a disagreement and leave, or just leave because they want to, the terms that the terms that they will leave on have already been set out. So no argument, no problem, no rush. Similarly, divorce. Personally, I've been through a divorce and I really, really do not recommend it. It's a very painful period of your life. For me, that was my focus for almost 18 months. And luckily at the time, I was a well-paid employee. So my company very kindly continued to pay me, and I kind of managed to do some of my job reasonably well. If I'd been the business owner and everything had relied on me, it's really unlikely that I could have kept a business going while I was going through a divorce. If we look at the next D, disability, COVID, long COVID, whatever. I think the last 2 years have shown us that whilst, especially when we're younger, we like to think that we are blessed with good health. We like to think that we are probably invincible. We probably don't need a pension yet. We don't need to think about that stuff because we've got at least, what's the number, 20, 30, 40 years of good health ahead of us, haven't we? Are we sure? What would happen to the business if one of the business owners had something dreadful happen? Maybe a heart attack, maybe a car crash, things that happen every day to someone else. And then the other thing, I don't know if any of you saw footage from Australia, but recently, a couple of weeks ago, they had flooding. They had flooding that was 6.3 meters of water. Now, we've never seen that in this country, although flooding events do seem to happen more. A daughter of a friend of mine had a business that was based in a basement flat in London. And if I mention flooding and basement flat in the same sentence, you can probably think, oh dear, oh dear. And that's exactly what happened to her. It happened 2 months ago. She's still trying to recover. She's still talking to insurance companies. And again, her focus is not on running her business. Her focus is on recovering from the flood. So, and there can be other things that might happen. You might have a big supplier that you rely on for a really crucial part of what you do. What happens if they have a big problem? What happens if they go bust? What happens if they disappear? So in terms of a business, all I'm saying here is these things happen routinely to other people. Take a look at them and make sure that you have a contingency plan. If it happened in your business, what would you do? Would the business continue as you wanted it to? And for the people who are 40 years down the line and who are actually suddenly thrust into a position to sell it, if we go back to the car analogy, we've got a car that's been used well. It's dirty, wheels might be a bit bashed, you know, it's had the dog in it going for a walk, and suddenly you have to sell it now. It's in the drive, put a for sale notice on it, and you get what you can for it. And maybe no one even sees it because the drive isn't sufficiently public. Or they might see it and they'll see how dusty it is, and they have a look and they see all the dog hairs in the back and they say, oh, do you know what? Doesn't look well cared for. I don't think I want to buy that. It wasn't valeted. It wasn't put on a car showroom. It wasn't put somewhere prominent. It's not attractive for sale. And so if we continue on the theme of what could possibly go wrong for a moment, looking ahead to when you want to sell the business so it pays you lots of money, lots of whatever your units of measure are, let me tell you now of people who suddenly decide, I'm going to retire, I'm going to sell my business, and they just put it on the market, 80% simply don't get sold. I'll say it again. 80% just don't get sold. Because when you put yourself in the position of the buyer and you look through the buyer's lens, you'll see things you don't like. I mentioned a shareholder agreement earlier. If a company doesn't have a share agreement and the buyer says, so who am I buying the business from? Who owns it now? Sorry? You don't have a shareholder agreement? That one fact on its own is likely to make the buyer turn around and walk away. Or he might get you into the next bracket, the next one up. If that's the only thing that he sees that's wrong with your business, he might take a risk. He might say, well, I'll give you a half or 3/4 or 20% of what you're asking for. Because what he sees is risk. When he's thinking about buying the business, he sees all the things that he has to put right. He's seeing all the things that might go wrong. And he's also looking for some sort of forecast, some sort of predictability. Can you tell me what your business is likely to do in the next few years? And again, if your business is well set up, you have a great accountant, and you can realistically project what your business will do in the future, then people say, well, that's interesting then. So you have a share agreement, everything is running well, and you can tell me how much money I'm likely to make if I buy your business in years 1, 2, and 3 going forward. But it's a very small number. And in fact, it's not on this slide, but the number that I have heard quoted by people who do sell businesses is one business in every 2,222 will sell. Or if we look at the other way around, 2,221 businesses that go on the market don't sell for everyone that does. So let's tip the tables in our favour. Let's see what we can do to change it. And when you get to the far end, normally evaluation we'll talk about profit, which is easy to measure. Your accountant can tell you how much profit you're making. And then there's this weird thing called a multiplier. And a multiplier is something that is used to say, well, in particular industries, there is a multiplier of 1 or 1.2 or 3 or 4, sometimes 8, sometimes a higher number. And so it's a good idea to really understand what is the multiplier and how can you make it a bigger number. If we take an accountancy practice and you value it in a standard way, it won't be profit, it'll be turnover, but it'll be turnover times 0.7 or 1.2. And yet you will hear of accountancy practices that have used a multiplier of 3, 3.5 or 4. And so clearly the multiplier is very important. And normally when a valuation is made, the multiplier is not looked at. It's just a given. It'll give you an idea of the value, because after all, it's only worth what the buyer wants to pay. So the profit, it's on the balance sheet, the multipliers are not. Sometimes people give you a fancy heading and say, oh, this is the intangible stuff. This is the stuff that doesn't really have a proper price. We can call it goodwill, and we can say this is the norm for your industry segment. But what if it was looked at? What if we could make it go higher? So what's on your screen now is a graph with a line. The line that goes up is now, and this is the line that is showing the value of a business. A long time ago it started, it wasn't worth very much. It's worth a bit more now, and one hopes that if it continues, the value will continue to go up. You know, even in spite of COVID, let's hope things continue to go up. And what we're saying is that business is making profit, hopefully, definitely. So what if somebody could take a look at your business from outside and say, let me show you, if you do this and this and this, we can make the profit go up. Therefore, the valuation would go up. And then the multipliers. What if we checked, have you got a share agreement? Is everything in the business owner's heads? There's a whole raft of things that can be done to make a business work better, efficiently, and make it attractive for someone else. And having it attractive for someone else also means it's actually very attractive for the person who's currently running it. And so if you decide to sell at this point in time, you can see the value's gone up. And if you wait a bit longer, you can see on the green line, the value's gone up further. So by addressing these issues, which are normally not addressed, because no one's shown anyone how, or the business owner is too busy running the business, being in the business, having his finger in every pie, that actually all of these things we're talking about today are not being addressed. And the reason to talk about them today is so that you people who are at the beginning of your journey can build these in and have a great business. So an interesting slide. It's a bit like there's a saying, isn't there? When is the best time to plant an oak tree? And the answer is 100 years ago. The second answer is, or the second best answer is, when is the best time to plant an oak tree? And that answer is now. So for people who've, like you, this is a great time. You are in the best place to start exit planning. For most people, they haven't even started by the time they get to here. And for a lot of people, the decision point is later in life, and the decision point and the time they start thinking about it are one and the same thing. I want to retire. I'm going to be 50 or 60 or 65, whatever the number is, I'm going to be that next year. So let's start thinking about it. So what are the options? Most people are under the impression that it's either sell up or give up. And this option here, fade away, what that's actually saying is, in some industries, and it's normally older businesses, more traditional businesses, they might be in a difficult position where actually, do you know what, there isn't a huge amount of value. You don't own your own buildings, you've got lovely staff, but you know, they're not doing much that's very special. So let's let it go. But let's make sure that every single asset that you have is sold for the highest value. Make sure every piece of equipment you own is sold for the highest value. Let's do this in a thoughtful and considered way. And let's be happy that you've let the business go. So yes, it's fading away, but it's done on your terms in a way that's got you the maximum you could in those circumstances. Another option, very often the business owners are so in love with their businesses that they don't want to have this kind of idea of a guillotine or a portcullis or you know, something that drops down and that's it. Yesterday you were the owner, today you're nothing. They want to be able to step down. They want to maybe pull money out in a way that is stepped as well, because they don't need all the money right now. And maybe the tax man says, or a tax advisor would say, the most sensible thing to do is to take the money out of the business over a whatever, is it 5 year, 7 year, whatever period. So by taking advice, you can do this well. And by having a step down approach, you can go from 5 days to 4 days to 3 days to 2 days to 1 day, and you can keep an eye on things if that's what you want to do after the exit. And some people, if you say to them, yes, there's also option 3. You can plan how you're going to exit. You can have a really long, hard look at what's going on in the business and probably make improvements. So the business does better, we find a way to re-energize the business, and so the business makes more money and becomes more attractive, and then presumably would be taken over by a much bigger company. A wonderful sale would happen, and so it would really get through. You would get the maximum again. So 3 options, 3 main choices. They're all valid, all for different reasons. So having chosen your option path in whenever you're going to retire, 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 years, what we're suggesting is to maximize the value, let's check on a few things. We'll go through 5 different stages. So you can see them, they're named on the left. Stage 1, identify the value. Because stereotypically, businesses that are further on than you, businesses that have been trading for 30 or 40 odd years, have got into some very, very bad habits. And so if the business owner might say, well, I think it's worth £1 million because what exactly? Because Johnny down the pub thinks it's worth £1 million. But other people might say, well, I need £1 million from the business because actually I haven't been paying myself properly, and you know, I need £1 million to retire. Okay. And other people might say, actually, I need 2 mil because I need £1 million to pay off the house, buy houses for the kids so that they're looked after. I'm going to need a new car and I want to see the world. Okay. But none of those 3 people have actually looked at what the business is worth. They've plucked a number out of the air. So stage 2 is about protecting the value. Stage 3 is about maximizing the value. Stage 4 is how you pull it out carefully, and stage 5 is how you continue the journey. Because what we believe again is selling a business should not be a transaction. It's not like buying a car or a bar of chocolate or even a house where you have a think about it, you agree a price, and that's kind of it, really. To us, it's a very, very important journey. The business owner will have to change from running a business to not running a business. The business will have to change because it used to have that business owner and now it's going to have this business owner. So there are all sorts of things that need to change, and it needs to start off, as we've said, by being attractive. So the first stage, what does the owner, you guys, in a few years' time, what do you actually want? Do you want to sell it to have a pot of money to start something else? Do you want to leave it as a legacy to family? Do you want to leave it to employees so they can carry on the good work they've been doing for years and years and years? What is it that you want? Comes back to my first question. What is the point of the business? Why are you in business? And this is where I hope now you're understanding making money is an outcome of running a business well. What you want the business to do for you is something very different. So the second step is, once we understand what you want, we understand which way you want your journey to go, we will fact find. We will ask you lots and lots and lots of questions. And then we'll deliver you the report that says, in our view, this is what your business would be worth through the eyes of a typical buyer if it was done today. Then we talk about what financial planning's there, what could happen about unplanned events, the 5 Ds I talked about, and lots of other things. And we talk about any other risks that we see in the business and how they might be changed. Stage 3, we talk about the options to you. We know which way you want to go, but we chat through them with you. We talk about the model, the planning model, and how that's going to work. Go through every single thing in your business and work on it to make sure it's in good shape. Then, when we think the event is within sight of happening, get someone to advise you on tax. You are about to receive a huge sum of money, hopefully more than you've ever dreamed of. So how can you make sure that all of that goes to you and not the taxman? What needs to be written down and kind of set in concrete, involving legal people. And then we look forward to the day, step 18, it's going to happen. You are going to stop being the owner, and some funds, some money will be transferred. So we don't want you to be like a lottery winner. We don't want you to be at work, normal day on Thursday, Friday, you become a lottery winner, £1 million, whatever it might be, huge sum of money. Because in our, what I've seen of the newspapers and things, having such a sudden windfall that is completely unplanned actually ruins people's lives. They don't know what to do with it. They haven't thought about spending it. They think it'll last forever, and it doesn't. So let's make sure you're not in that position. Plan what you're going to do with it. Plan how you maximize it carrying on for as long as possible. And also, it's now a sizable estate. So when you talk about estates in this sort of context, we're talking about after you actually pass on, die, after you stop living, where is all that money going to go? Because again, we don't want it to go to Her Majesty's government. We want you to have it. So it's an ongoing journey. So those are all the steps, and it's all about what you want to do with a business. It's all about ensuring that your business is attractive. Because again, what makes something attractive to a buyer should make something attractive to you. If it's attractive to you, you're going to put more effort in. If it's attractive to you, it's probably attractive to your staff. So by having a business that runs well from day one, with a target or a goal from day one, your business is likely to be inherently more successful. But these things don't happen by chance normally. Some people are lucky, but normally if someone gives you a steer, gives you help, helps you plan, puts plan in place, someone is there to monitor the plan and make sure you're on track, then it's going to work. And yes, it does take time. For you guys, you have enough time, but for lots of people, they've left it too late. And as we said before, if you rush it, it won't work, or it won't work as well. Certainly if you try and sell it now without any planning, it's so hard. We talked about 1 in 2,000. So that's what really today is all about. Maximizing the value of the asset that you guys are currently building. You're there, you're at the beginning of the road. So my wish to you is that you think carefully and do the right things for the right reason, because then you will be a very small minority of people. You will be people who have thought about what their business is doing and where it's going and why it's going there. And one of the things that I have as a personal saying is, if you plan for success and follow the plan, the result should be predictable. So again, this is what I want for you guys. I want you to really, really enjoy your business. I want you to be successful in everything you do. And also it's a complete subject in one of the webinars, but the webinars talk about who to collaborate with, who to partner with, where can you get help from. So I was also urged that you have a think about that. So it's the final slide. It's gone very quickly this morning. So you are, as part of the program, you can have one-to-one business advice sessions. And what this means is that you have the opportunity to talk to a very well qualified business advisor in kind of 3 chunks, 3 hourly sessions. And it's confidential, and they can give you really good, solid pointers on how to overcome things you're struggling with now. And if you're looking towards the future, how to put yourself in the best place to succeed. So that's me finished. As I say, it's somewhat ahead of time, so I hope that's not a problem, and I hope people don't mind me finishing a little earlier than expected. So now,
thank you, Charlie. What I'm going to do is I'm going to enable everybody's camera and mic now. So if you want to have a conversation with Charlie, you're most welcome. So just let me do that, and you'll see that you've been enabled.
Okay, that's great. So anyone got any thoughts? Anyone like to put any thoughts in the chat or tell me anything? There's a name I recognise. Yusuf, do you want to come off mute? Give me your thoughts.
It's all a bit morbid, really, but I suppose it's necessary.
I'm sorry, it's not meant to be morbid. But I think you've touched on a very interesting point in that it is a bit like death and taxes. That if people are a business owner now, and actually it was an IFA who introduced me to this idea, but he said, you know, you're running your business now, hopefully quite successfully, And he said there will be a point in the future, and on his little pad, he just drew a little tombstone and it said RIP on it. So he didn't kind of say it in words, but I'm thinking like, oh. And he said there'll be a point in the middle when, yes, the business owner stops running the business. And I suppose that stuck in my mind, that so many business owners have no thought or consideration for when they will choose to leave. And that's really the whole point of today, was for me to say to you, please don't let it be an afterthought. You know, and I suppose, again, you know, for you young guys, when people talk to you about pensions, you probably feel exactly the same way. Oh, I don't need to do that yet. No, I'm fine. And then so many people have got to the age of 50 or 60 or older, and they don't have a pension. And even if they get to the age of 50 and they try and put money in, the pension advisors will say something like, well, you can put money in now, but really it's too little too late. Yes, it'll make a difference. And then give you some unhelpful comment like, yeah, if you'd started doing this 10 years ago or 20 years ago, 30 years ago, it would have been so much better. And so, yes, business owners, you put your whole life's effort into this. You put all of you into the business, and it's grown well. And so yes. And I saw a question flash up there. I think it might have been Cornelia, saying that if you are a sole shareholder, should you have a shareholder agreement? And my advice for that would be yes, but it would be a very simple one. And it would just be a very clear statement that says you are the owner of all of the shares, even though it's only one, and that therefore you will make all the decisions, you own the entire company. And so, because what we're looking for here is clarity. One of the first questions, something I didn't mention today, but you know, if you'd taken your car to those lovely people at WeBuyAnyCar.com, they'll give you a valuation on the phone, and then when you take the car to them to collect your money, they say, oh, Mr. McClelland, Mr. McClelland, you seem to have a chip on your windscreen. Oh, Mr. McClelland, there's a chip on the bonnet as well. Oh, Mr. McClelland, do you own a dog? Or is it milk that you've spilt in the car? And so they have almost like a checklist that they go through, and in their mind, what they're saying is, how can we get the price down? How can we, it's not quite legitimately, but how can we make sure we're not paying over the odds for this car? And so buyers or buyers advisors, people who are looking at businesses for sale, they have exactly the same checklist of things. And the first one is a shareholder agreement. So if you've got one and it's clear and it says what the reality is, you're already in a better place. So,
Charlie,
yes,
we have a question from Cornelia, please.
Okay, let me get the chat up.
On the chat.
Just a second. Yeah, it's just come up. Okay. What a great question, Cornelia. So unfortunately, it's a very difficult one to answer, but because like any service, it depends on the level and depth and complexity of what's being asked for. So I'd be very happy to take the question with you on a one-to-one basis, but I would also suggest that if you go through the program and use the hours that are given, I think that would put you in a great place to know what additional help you would need, and so you would be in a much better position to talk about the pricing.
Another question. How do people deal with digital assets, given how most of us do everything online nowadays and so much of our intellectual property is online, etc.? How do we deal with that? And do these two things, I mean, does this planning also tie into how you set up your own personal will as well?
Okay, let's do the second one first because that's easier. Yes, the will of a shareholder or a business owner is massively important to what happens, because if we follow the morbid the death path for a minute, a will that is written well will describe what happens to the business. So yes, and if you're looking to sell a business on again, it's an important thing to be considered because it has a direct effect on the future of the business. Some people choose to leave it to wives or other shareholders, and again, even that decision on its own, a buyer might want to question and say, well, hang on a minute, I'm sure your wife is very lovely, sir, but what does she know about the business? Can she actually replace you? So yes, the contents of a will, a personal will, are massively important. What was the second question?
Digital assets.
Digital assets. Yep. Okay. So point number one on that one looks at how are they managed and how are they recognized by the company? Is it seen as some kind of cloud service that is basically a subscription, or do you have valuable IP of your own, and the cloud is simply a storage vessel for you to keep and have access to those assets? So the price, I think, it depends on the quality and the type of the IP, because some people will have their own apps, they'll have their own software, they'll have their own lots of things. And so from my perspective, the value of the asset is about what the asset is worth. The fact that it's digital, non-digital, in the cloud, not in the cloud, is less relevant. It's important that digital assets are taken account of, yes. It's also something that an accountant is almost, well, I've never seen an accountant that can take digital assets into account. So when we speak about valuations that are given, that's another reason why they may not be very accurate, because the person doing the valuation is not aware of the IP you have, be it digital or otherwise.
Great, thank you.
Okay, and for those of you who aren't looking at the chat right now, what Nauza has put down in words of one syllable is, you get 3 hours of my time. So yes, if you'd like to book time with me, we can put some dates in the diary promptly after this. You can see there that Nauza has put my email address into the chat, so I would obviously be delighted if you would like to talk about this or any other thing that's happened within the Park Royal Delivering Growth program, because I don't know if it's come across today, but I like to think that I have quite a lot of experience, and I think yourself, you've also been on the receiving end of that, so I wouldn't wish to put you on the spot. But if you would care to make any comment, please do. And if you equally have nothing to say nothing.
No, thank you. I've certainly benefited from your advice. Was it 2 days ago, 3 days ago we chatted? So
Yeah, I think it's earlier this week. Yeah.
And I'm doing a lot of homework based on that at the moment, and there's a lot to digest and there's a lot to do. And anyone who's going to go down the road with Charlie, be aware that there's a lot of work that you have to do. It's not just a one-way thing. He'll tell you what you need to do and how to go about it and give you good advice, but it's a matter of executing it, which is easier said than done. It's not impossible, and it's definitely a lot easier with all of the structure that is given with the advice. But yeah, if you want to make the most of it and maximize it, you got to get down and get into the weeds of your business and realize just how many weeds there actually are and how many cul-de-sacs you've been walking down for a long time. So yeah, thank you.
Okay, well that was very kind of you, sir. Thank you. Yes, and in this program, what we're seeing is there are actually 3 sessions, so it tends to be easier for you guys as recipients, because we take it, if you like, one stage at a time, check in to do the second session, see how it's going, give you some more thoughts and ideas to look at, and then check in again on the third time to make sure that everything has happened and is going according to plan. Because yes, I think the challenge that Yusuf has alluded to is that I want to give you kind of, I don't know, 40, 50 odd years of experience compressed into an almost impossibly short period of time. And I do want to light a rocket underneath you. And I do want to say, look, the only thing that's stopping you doing your improvements to your business is somebody telling you how. You're bright enough, you're hardworking enough, you're diligent enough. All it needs is someone to tell you how. So if I can be that someone to say, do this, 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 and this, and tell you why with an explanation, then yes, I would feel it's, from my side, it's been worthwhile. Okay. Okay, so great. Anything else from your end, Nelson?
No more questions. Can we end? Anything else that participants want to say? They've got your email address, and we're happy to work with you. And please contact Charlie. So on that happy note, I'm going to end the recording now and end the session in a couple of minutes.
Okay, lovely. Thank you.